Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Ripple just saved the day. You may recall that several days ago, news broke that Ripple purchased a firm, a crypto infrastructure firm called Fortress. Well, what we didn't know at the time was that there was a security breach prior to that. And although, from what I've read, for some reason, maybe it's just a game of semantics, maybe it's not technically being considered a hack, if that's accurate for some reason, but I don't care. The point is that funds were stolen from customers of Fortress via this security breach. And Fortress apparently lied about it. And then Ripple, after purchasing the company, came out and said, no, there were definitely funds that were stolen, and we just made those customers whole. Like, literally, Ripple just plugged the gap. However much money was stolen, which hasn't been disclosed so far as I've seen anyway, they just gave it up apparently as part of the purchase agreement, I think. Anyway, pretty wild stuff here. I also want to share with you towards the later part of the video. This article is from the Crypto Basic. Law veteran Mark Fagel highlights only reason SEC will settle with Ripple before trial. So, folks, can you imagine if this thing really does go to trial, as seems fairly likely at this point, right? What if we end up seeing Jay Clayton testify, or Billy Boy Hinman? But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And so here's the headline from CNBC several days ago, this past Friday. Ripple buys crypto infrastructure startup in its second acquisition of 2023. And the other acquisition was a firm called Medico, also having to do with crypto custody services, for $250 million. So Ripple's getting a little bit spindy here. And then people are kind of questioning, where are these funds exactly coming from? Some were speculating that Ripple had to sell a whole bunch more XRP to make this happen, but I haven't seen any evidence in any sort of change in the amount of XRP that Ripple's been selling. They're pretty transparent about that stuff here. But here's the latest headline. This is from this afternoon. Fortress CEO clears the air on security breach and stolen funds. Since acquiring financial technology firm Fortress 4 days ago, Ripple had to fill a hole in some of the crypto custodian's customer accounts after a security breach 2 weeks ago. Upon briefly disclosing the breach last Thursday, Fortress claimed that impacted accounts were fully restored and that there had been no loss of funds. And so, folks, that's the part that is in contention. No loss of funds. Is that true? Because that's not what Ripple's saying. So check this out. The confusing explanations from both companies stoked community concern around Fortress's transparency, its client safety, its partners' involvement, and who exactly was at fault. Amid the uproar, Fortress CEO Scott Purcell said the whole situation has been overblown. We were not hacked, Fireblocks was not hacked, and BitGo was not hacked, the co-founder confirmed to Decrypt via email on Tuesday. Fortress is a custody, compliance, and infrastructure provider for blockchain companies that manage billions in assets. Fireblocks specializes in regulated digital asset custody for institutions, as does competitor BitGo. Fortress uses wallets from both companies. Throughout the incident, Fortress and BitGo performed perfectly, according to Purcell, who instead pinned the blame on a major third-party cloud database tool as responsible for the breach. Fortunately, and surprisingly, honestly, within 48 hours, we got an email from the tool company admitting the breach on their end, and we are in the process of holding them accountable, Purcell said. A Ripple spokesperson told Decrypt that customers were aware and made whole in advance of Fortress publicly disclosing the breach on September 7th, and that the statement from Fortress was shared on a public forum. The spokesperson also provided additional context on the Ripple acquisition. So that's it in a nutshell, but I'm just wondering how, if you're Fortress, how can you just say, there was no loss of funds when clearly there was a loss of funds, and Ripple saying, yeah, actually we just took that loss. We just went ahead and gave Fortress customers their company, because again, they just bought the firm, so I'm not surprised that they actually did that. It makes you wonder what the total figure would have been, but I haven't seen that disclosed anywhere, so if anybody knows, let me know. I just hadn't seen it anywhere. But then there's also a quote from attorney John Deaton on this. It was, let me go down. This is a separate article. He said, of course, Ripple and Garlinghouse got sued and it cost them $200 million in legal fees, and now it's Ripple who has made customers of Fortress whole, end quote. Yeah, and so it kind of struck me that way too. I'm glad that he mentioned that because I'm sure a lot of us are thinking that. So they spent about $200 million in legal fees for the SEC v. Ripple case. Then they bought Medico for $250 million. Then they bought Fortress and made customers whole here as a result of the security breach and theft. That's a lot of money. So as a result of that, though, there are a lot of people that were speculating, okay, well, this is why XRP's price is going down. Because, the other day it got down to 46 cents. And even at the time I'm recording this, I think XRP is like 48 cents. But did this actually have something to do with it? And so there's this article from the Crypto Basic titled, XRP falls below 48 cents amid speculation. Ripple sold XRP to fund Fortress buyout. And they ended up highlighting this particular post from XRP community member and attorney Bill Morgan. And Attorney Morgan wrote, I wouldn't want to think that Ripple sold a lot of XRP to fund this acquisition and bailing out of Fortress customers, putting downward price pressure at XRP. But that couldn't be the cause of the price fall today as the whole crypto market fell. Yeah, and so that's an astute observation, of course. It is true. The entire asset class was doing what it was doing. And Ripple, my God. I don't even know what they did, how much XRP they need to sell to even put a temporary dent in the global price of XRP, but it would just be an absurd amount here. And so I wrote to Attorney Morgan and I said, they previously had $1 billion in the bank. Of course, I can't say with any certainty how they funded the purchase, but I suspect they didn't sell more XRP than normal to pay for it. And Attorney Morgan seems to agree with me. He wrote, I agree. The whole market fell, but it is a fair question, Matt. Who is bearing the risk of Ripple acquisitions and potential business failure? Ripple shareholders or XRP holders? It was proper for Simon Dixon to make the disclosure he did about being a Ripple shareholder only. And so he's referencing this quote from Bitcoin Maxi guy here. And he had written, Ripple made Fortress customers hit by security incident whole as part of acquisition, and that he's a shareholder there. And so I don't mind the question at all. I think we should always have open, honest communication about this, and a discussion about this stuff within our community. I don't think, even after the legal bills and even after purchasing Medico, I don't think that Ripple was hurting for cash. And I don't see a need even for Ripple to sell a whole bunch more XRP right now specifically for this. And although I will say, even if it's them, I don't care. That's their asset. They can do whatever they want. You guys know my stance on it doesn't matter. If you own an asset and you want to sell that asset, go for it. It's none of my damn business. So that's just the way that I get it personally anyway. And then there's also this. Law veteran Mark Fagel highlights only reason SEC will settle with Ripple before trial. Former SEC official Mark Fagel provides fresh insight on a potential settlement in the ongoing Ripple case. There have been rumors that the SEC could settle with Ripple before the trial commences. Notably, the rationale behind this speculation, according to some XRP supporters, is to enable the SEC to prevent its former officials from testifying during the trial. The trial, which relates to the SEC's case against Ripple execs Garlinghouse and Larson, is scheduled for Q2 2024. Interestingly, Mark Fagel, a former SEC official and expert in securities litigation, has provided fresh insight on a potential settlement in the Ripple lawsuit. During a discussion on X, an XRP enthusiast asked him to comment on whether the SEC will settle with Ripple before the scheduled trial commences. Responding, Fagel highlighted one major reason that could motivate the SEC to reach an agreement with Ripple before the trial. According to Fagel, the SEC would settle with Ripple before the trial only if the claims against Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson were considered high risks. And so here's a question from an XRP community member who wrote, and do you think, Mark, that the SEC is interested in a settlement before the trial starts in order to avoid Hinman and Clayton to testify? And Attorney Fagel wrote the following. I think if the SEC is interested in settlement, it's because the remaining claims against the individuals are high risk. I don't think testimony from former SEC officials is a major factor. I'll just say, to me, that sounds reasonable. And not that I agree with Attorney Fagel on a bunch of stuff, but I think that he's an intellectually honest person, and on this point, he actually could be right here. If you're the SEC, if you're settling, you have to know. They have to know that they tremendously overcharged, and this is a gigantic strategic misstep. Naming brand cards. So they thought that they, it would benefit them because they're just being bullies and putting the extra pressure on. But then, as a result of them doing that, a bunch of other stuff came to light in the SEC v. Ripple case, all the pretrial stuff that otherwise wouldn't have. So it was actually a negative for the SEC. They're shooting themselves in the foot effectively. But does the SEC actually think they'd win on these fronts? Like Brad and Chris, they were actually reckless. I don't think that's going to pan out so well for them. And so, as far as them considering, Jay Clayton and Bill Hinman, what would actually come out? I mean, even if they actually were to testify in any capacity in this case, I don't think. I could be wrong, but my suspicion is that the existing leadership at the SEC just won't give a damn, especially not for Jay Clayton. They're not buddy-buddy there. They don't care. That would be my guess anyway here. So it is possible that this happens, and the SEC has, the tide has turned in the battle, their battle against the world of crypto. The tide has turned. And even though the war isn't over today, I believe that it ultimately will be. And we're on the right side of history, as I've been saying the whole time here, but the tide has certainly turned. And they see that courts and, the judges, they're not letting the SEC get away with a bunch of this crap that they thought and sought to get away with. So who knows? Maybe they actually do. Maybe they actually will settle. I don't know if we should find that to be probable, but if they do, the rationale for that seems pretty reasonable. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.